Senator Swertner, you are recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business and the constitutional order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 21.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business and constitutional order of business to take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 21. Members, Senate Bill 21 creates the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, sending a clear message regarding the multi-decade spendthrift stewardship of our country by the federal government and its resultant inflation. Individuals, investment firms, and sovereigns have reacted to excessive spending by seeking alternatives to fiat currency. These alternatives have historically included gold and land, but now include cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin, referenced as digital gold by the United States Treasury, has been a recognized asset in the financial markets. Besides individuals holding Bitcoin directly or through custodianship on exchanges, multiple publicly traded SEC-regulated Bitcoin ETFs are now traded on U.S. stock exchanges. Bitcoin offers unique advantages in the digital era to its limited supply and decentralized nature, in contrast to the federal government, which has an unlimited printing press and centralized control of the currency. Senate Bill 21 creates the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve as a special fund managed under the Comptroller of Public Accounts. This bill will allow Texas to diversify our investment approach, participate competitively in the evolving digital financial economy, and leverage the benefits of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Under Senate Bill 21, the Comptroller is authorized to acquire, exchange, manage, and retain investments of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies with a market capitalization of at least $500 billion. All assets in the reserve will be managed under the same prudent investor standard currently followed by the Comptroller. The bill has custodianship provisions for the safeguarding our assets, and the bill also creates a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Advisory Committee to provide current cryptocurrency investment expertise and recommendations to the Comptroller. And lastly, the bill requires a biennial report to be submitted to the legislature and published online for public access. Thank you. I'll be happy to take questions or move to suspend the regular order of business and all constitutional rules to take up and consider Senate Bill 21.
Senator Gutierrez, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for a few questions?
Senator Swertner, will you yield?
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Swertner. I don't own any Bitcoin or any kind of alt currency, so I don't know much about this, so you'll have to educate me a little bit. First off, do we have any other such reserves that we're using Texas taxpayer money and saying we're going to buy some other kind of currency here and hold it in some vault? Do we have any such reserve that you know of?
The Comptroller operates a number of special funds, as well as obviously the Treasury of the state of Texas. In those various funds, the Comptroller can purchase exchange-traded funds and other strategic investments, including land and hard assets and other currencies. They're well delineated, and there are many funds that the Comptroller oversees.
There was a gold reserve we established not too long ago, right?
There was, yes. There is a gold reserve located, I believe, in Cedar Park, if I'm not mistaken.
Does it surprise you that the state of Texas has put no such gold in that gold reserve?
Senator, it doesn't. I wish they would have, to be quite frank.
I
believe in hard assets and believe that there is a place for the state to participate in acquiring hard assets to maintain a very strong financial position.
Well, why not euros? I mean, here you're talking about Bitcoin. Why not euros? Why not rupees? Why not Russian rubles?
Senator, I believe the Comptroller in certain accounts, as well as ERS and TRS, can invest in various ways that do access foreign currencies, for instance, in the example you gave.
The thing is, foreign currencies are always backstopped, or at least compared to the United States dollar. Isn't that true?
They're backstopped by the full faith and credit of that sovereign. And I would argue that the full faith and credit of all sovereigns over time eventually goes to its natural worth, which is the paper that money is printed on. Certainly there have been rises of currencies and falls of currencies over time. The dollar had its ascendancy, and in my opinion, the dollar is in decline because of the spendthrift manner in which our federal budget has been handled over many, many decades by many, many administrations.
But stocks are regulated. We talked about stocks earlier, that are managed by the comptrollers. Those are regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission, correct?
That's correct. They are, stocks are SEC listed and regulated securities of publicly traded companies.
And there is no such regulatory agency for crypto in the United States or in the state of Texas.
That the regulation of cryptocurrency is done by the blockchain, which is a decentralized manner in which the accounting mechanism for the number of Bitcoin and who owns those Bitcoin is handled. And in some ways, it is more accountable because it has that decentralized nature versus a centralized regulatory apparatus, either provided by a nation or in this case, a regulatory entity called in the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission.
I don't mean to be a smartass here. I mean, what is a blockchain? Is that a group of people? Is that a computer? How is this regulated?
The blockchain is a digital mechanism of accounting and transference of ownership of the digital currency.
So it's like a robot? Is that fair? I mean, we have robots now regulating themselves here?
It's not a robot.
Not a robot.
It's not a robot.
Is it up in the cloud? We hear a lot about the cloud. Is it up in the cloud?
It's a digital mechanism of accounting, just as with the U.S. Treasury and other countries.
No.
You don't have stacks of dollar bills in safes like we did in the medieval times. What we have is the digital currency, digital economy, in which accounting and mechanisms are handled by ones and zeros.
Well, now time out, because we just established that the SEC regulates stocks and bonds and treasuries. We just established, or at least we have not established this, but the U.S. dollar, I know you'd like to say it's the good faith and credit of the United States.
Full faith and credit,
Full
Senator.
faith, whatever that's worth. I think you said that before. I think it's worth a lot, number one. Every economy in the world is compared to the United States dollar.
At the current time.
And even our current currency, there's probably a stack of books that regulate what we do with the United States currency. Laws, correct?
There are certainly laws regarding the U.S. currencies. Does that make it more secure? Does that make it more solid long term? I would argue and put forth that because of central intervention and manipulation of the supply of currency, in this case the U.S. dollar, the ability to spend money through printing money has caused the dollar to fall in its value and fall in its worth and fall in the security and the confidence people have in the dollar.
And we're supposed to believe some crypto bros maybe. All I've heard is it's a blockchain and it's a computer, it's an algorithm, something. We're supposed to allow that algorithm, that computer, and a few dudes named Chuck, I don't know, some crypto bros, to regulate themselves?
Senator, I believe the digital financial economy, with Bitcoin being at the forefront, has proven itself over multi-year up and down cycles. It is now recognized as a financial asset by the United States Treasury. It has SEC publicly regulated ETFs that trade that, and it is now being advanced as a mechanism to deal with and have an alternative to fiat currency during times of inflation. That's why we see at the federal level, President Trump put forth on his first day, I believe, an executive order setting up the cryptocurrency. I want to get the exact term for you, Senator. The Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets, and then, of course, a day after tomorrow, there will be an actual summit at the White House regarding digital assets and cryptocurrencies and the potential advancement of a strategic national digital asset stockpile. In addition, Senator, there are 32 other states that are looking at similar legislation. I want Texas to lead in this, to lead in the digital financial economy. And I think it is worthwhile that Texas expands its treasury options, financial options when it comes to the store of value. In this case, expanding it to digital assets, in this case, Bitcoin.
This is a dumb question. Can you buy a pizza with crypto?
If the owner of the person or the person selling the pizza takes cryptocurrency and as a means of exchange, you can.
You know, I asked many of my constituents in the last few days, both rich and poor. And, you know, we don't need to get into how rich or how poor they were. If they had any of these such alternative currencies, not one said yes. I've talked to other members on this floor if they own crypto. I won't name their names. Not one has told me yes. I don't know, and you don't have to answer whether you own crypto. That's okay. And I'm glad you brought up President Trump, because on Sunday he said he was going to take $500 million of U.S. taxpayer dollars and go off and create this reserve that you're talking about. Do you think that that's a good place, a good place to be able to protect our dollars? $500 million of taxpayer dollars? You haven't even told us how much you want to do.
This sets up the reserve. It does not appropriate money. As you're aware, Senator, the appropriation process goes to the Finance Committee. Regarding your question regarding federal stockpiles, I would be much more positive regarding what is occurring in the DOGE evaluation of overall spending at the federal level, to where we get ourselves back to a balanced budget and a sound footing when it comes to our revenue versus what we spend. As you're aware, we are a deficit finance nation. Our budget the U.S. federal government is somewhere around $6.9 trillion, and we only bring in $4.9 trillion. And Senator, I know you agree with me that we shouldn't spend 35, 40% more than we take in, because that leads to deficits, it leads to inflation, it leads to debt, and it leads to a declining economy and a weaker dollar.
And you think that buying crypto is the solution to all that?
Senator, that's not the solution to overspending. The solution to overspending is voting in individuals in Congress that will pass a balanced budget amendment, and also having stewardship from a presidential level regarding cutting wasteful spending. And I applaud our president. I know you probably do too, when it comes to cutting of wasteful spending at the federal level. And so that is probably the best way of handling inflation. When it comes to the states and individuals and entities wanting to find alternatives because they worry about inflation, that's where this type of legislation comes in.
Well, you know, Senator, and I apologize, I don't want to get off into the weeds of budget deficits and firing 80,000 VA employees. You brought it up, but I don't want to get down that
I have no authority over VA employees,
I think
Senator.
that we should stick to the subject matter at hand.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Bybit?
Bybit. I am familiar. That's the exchange, correct?
That's correct. Are you familiar that in October, they lost $1.5 billion, went poof out of the algorithm cloud, or what did you call it, blockchain, just gone?
It wasn't gone from the blockchain, Senator. I think you're mistaken in that. The Bybit did have an attack on the actual exchange, but that is completely separate than an attack on the blockchain. In fact, the blockchain has never been broken. Exchanges have certainly been attacked and assets taken from them, just as banks have been robbed over the years, and financial malfeasance has occurred in the financial markets. So yes, bad things happen, but it was not a fault of the algorithm and blockchain.
Members, Bybit lost $1.5 billion because they were using a over-the-counter software that you'd buy online for their safety protocols. And they lost $1.5 billion of the few investors that bought this. Isn't it true, Senator, that only 90% of the Bitcoin that's owned is only owned by 10% of the Bitcoin holders? Is that not right?
There are certain addresses on the blockchain that own more than others. I don't know if that number is correct, Senator.
Is Bitcoin counter-cyclical? Does it go up when the economy is bad? Does it go down when the economy is up? It isn't, is it?
I don't know.
It has not ever proven to be yet still, correct?
I'm sorry, what was your
It
question?
has not yet proven to be counter-cyclical.
Senator, I don't really have much input on that question.
You've taken us down this road saying that this is the path to, if in a down economy, we've got a Bitcoin reserve. That's what it says in your bill analysis. That's what you said.
It's a retort and a store of value and an asset that is decentralized in its accounting mechanism and finite in its number, 21 million Bitcoin.
The fact is, members, Bitcoin is not counter-cyclical. When
is
economies are bad, it is down. Just the other day, when President Trump announced his $500 million of Bitcoin and Sol and a few others, they went up so high, and a few days later, it went down so low. It is very volatile, is it not, Senator?
Like all financial assets, there is volatility associated with Bitcoin and other crypto assets. As you are, I'm sure, aware, back in 2000 to 2002, the QQQ, the NASDAQ, which is one of the largest exchanges, went down 78%. So assets can fall in price. 2 years ago, in 2022, when interest rates went from 0.25% to 525 basis points, 5.25%, long-term treasuries went down over 20%. So a long-term treasury has pronounced volatility when interest rates are changing dramatically, as occurred in 2022. And at that time, ERS and TRS took a big hit because of that. They held lots of treasuries. So yes, there's volatility associated with Bitcoin. There's volatility associated with any financial asset. There's volatility associated with the home you own that you just don't know about.
I have a few more questions, Mr. President. Senator, what is Bitcoin halving? H-A-L-V-I-N-G. Can you explain that to us?
Yes, that's when the number of Bitcoin change in number and double, essentially. That occurs about every 3 years on the blockchain.
And it occurs by the Bitcoin mining. And I don't even want to get into the whole Bitcoin mining craziness and the sapping of energy and oil and gas reserves and the natural gas that these big giant servers use. We don't need to go there. But tell me what happens with this halving. Is it multiplying? Is it compressing?
The number of Bitcoin expand by doubling up to a finite number of 21 million.
And what happens to the value of Bitcoin then? Does it go down?
It depends upon the supply and demand of Bitcoin at that time.
In 2040, this halving is projected to be infinitesimal. What do you think the value will be then, Senator?
Well, when you have something that is finite and something that is scarce and something that is wanted, the natural tendency is for that substance, whatever it is, to go up in value. If you're in the middle of a desert, a little bottle of water would be worth quite a bit of money. That happens in sporting goods and in sporting arenas and in other areas. So the value of something is dependent upon supply and demand, and because there's only a finite number of whatever it is, land, gold, Bitcoin, values are not responsive to the making of more of it, because you only have so much land, so much gold, so much Bitcoin.
Well, Senator, I'm not the sharpest knife in the kitchen, that's for damn sure. My father used to say something vulgar about Socrates. I won't give that to you today, but I'm sorry. This is just not something that the vast majority of my constituents have or use, the vast majority of people in this room use. It is highly volatile. It is a huge concern that the market goes up and down, and members, it is completely unregulated. And if you can't buy a pizza with it, then you should all be concerned. You should all be concerned. And so, thank you, Mr. President. I won't be voting for this bill today, but thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Parker, you're recognized. For what purpose?
I'd like to ask the author a question.
Senator Schwertner, do you yield?
I yield.
Well, thank you, Senator Schwertner. Appreciate your leadership in bringing this bill forward. There are a lot of comments back and forth in the conversation with Senator Gutierrez. I wanted just to address a couple of things just for the record. First and foremost, I think it's very important for people to realize that crypto in Texas is regulated by our banking commissioner, that we put in place a regulatory framework. In fact, I carried that bill, I think years ago. It was House Bill 4484 that established, if you will, our framework for digital assets. So I think it's important just to set the record straight in that regard. I also think it's important for folks to understand that there are multiple strategies that we're following with regard to strengthening the autonomy of America and the autonomy of Texas when it comes to our financial balance sheet. And I think principally, when you think about where we are as a nation, where we are in 2025, we're all concerned with the dollar maintaining its position as the reserve currency of the world. There's no question that because of the debt that America has incurred, that we have to get that under control. And everyone understands that. That's a bipartisan issue. Everyone understands we got to get that debt under control. And so how do we as a nation and a state project hegemonic influence globally? Well, you do that through innovation. You do that through leading in new types of asset classes. And so in my mind, the way I've always looked at digital assets, Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, is that you're really adding an asset to the American balance sheet. And I think that's really what we're doing here, is it not, Senator? Potentially adding, if you will, strength to our balance sheet here in Texas, that we're really providing additional ability for Texas to be autonomous economically, and that we're really providing a hedge against bad monetary policy that has cost America and Texans so dearly with the horrible inflation. That's really what we're doing with this reserve, is it not?
I think what you said was very eloquent. Financial stability, a hedge, autonomy, financial strength is, and I think we do need, as a state, to be forward-thinking in what we do from a financial point of view. Other states have seen this. I think Texas should lead on this. I think this bill has the necessary safeguards regarding the comptroller, the safeguarding of the asset, the advisory committee. We're starting small from a budgetary standpoint. If the Senate so chooses and the House agrees to put any amount of money in the reserve. But the discussion needs to happen because Bitcoin is a proven asset in the financial markets, well traded, really one of the highest volume traded assets when it comes to the ETFs that hold Bitcoin. And really, I would say people that don't know much about this are behind the curve regarding finances and dealing with inflationary pressures long term. You cannot expect to put your money in a bank account, and Texas cannot expect to put their money in a 1% savings account and keep up with inflation. We need to be forward-thinking, as individuals are forward-thinking when it comes to financial assets and the investment of those financial assets.
100%. We've got to allow our fund managers to be in a position to succeed, to keep Texas vibrant, to get a great, outstanding return. And I think it's so important that everyone realizes this is 100% in alignment with what President Trump is doing at the federal level, establishing right now the crypto, if you will, reserve, if you will, strategic reserve for America. We are 100% in alignment with that here in Texas. And a comment was made earlier, do we have other stockpiles or other reserves? And the answer is absolutely, at the federal level and the state level. We should encourage more of that. And one of the things that also came up in conversation, of course, was the topic of our gold bullion exchange. I remember carrying that with one of my colleagues in the House years ago and passing it out of committee. Why? Because we wanted Texas to lead. We wanted to have the ability to play in all of these new innovative areas where Texans could get an advantage. And so I would love to see, personally, more Texans go and take their gold and use our gold bullion depository. And I would encourage Texas, our comptroller and our comptroller's office, to make additional investments in gold as well. It's smart that we diversify and that we focus on all of these various opportunities to strengthen America's position, and in particular Texas's position in a global world that is so volatile.
Thank you, Senator. Well-spoken comments.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Blanco, for what purpose?
Questions for the author?
Senator Schwartner, do you yield?
I yield.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. Obviously, we heard this bill in Business and Commerce, and I think, as you know, I support the bill, and I think that this helps hedge against inflation and monetary instability. I want to focus in on, and you may have mentioned it earlier, but inside the bill, you've built in a section that has market capitalization requirements. Can you talk about the importance of that section? And you're talking about market capitalization of at least $500 billion. Can you walk us through that? Because I think that's an important piece.
Yes.
That lends to some security in what we're doing here.
Right. Market capitalization pertains to how much value that asset has when combined all together. And just as a point of reference, Senator, I appreciate your question. All assets in the world are about $700 trillion. And gold, if you add up all the gold in the world, it's about $20 trillion. And Bitcoin right now is 1.7, 1.8 trillion dollars when you add up all the Bitcoin and total it and put what is it worth. There are other cryptocurrencies, as we know. The next one down would be Ethereum, and that is around $250 billion. So it would fall below that level. So the $500 billion threshold means that that asset has had enough individuals buy that asset, value it as a store of value for a period of time, and has dispersion amongst financial markets and individuals and countries to where it has enough what I would call staying power. With Bitcoin in particular, you've had now 3 major up and down cycles, with the low of each cycle being higher and higher and higher. And as such, I think it has shown itself and proven itself to be the most preferred because of its limited supply, adaptability in the markets, and overall market cap.
So what you're saying is that we're not just purchasing any cryptocurrency that's out there. We're looking at those that are reliable, steady, and there aren't that many. There may be a handful of that. So what you're looking at is purchasing those that have been consistently reliable.
That's right, Senator.
Great.
Well, great
Thank
question.
you.
I appreciate
you. Thank you.
Clarification.
Senator Schwartner moves suspension of the regular order of business and the constitutional order of business. On committee substitute for Senate Bill 21, the Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart.
25 ayes and 5 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 21. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 21 relating to the establishment and administration of the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve for the purpose of investing in cryptocurrency.
Senator Schwartner, you recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment, committee substitute Senate Bill 21.
Senator Schwartner moves passage to engrossment. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
25 ayes and 5 nays. The bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Schwartner, you are recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Schwartner moves suspension of the 3-day rule. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores.
25 ayes and 5 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 21. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 21 relating to the establishment and administration of the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve for the purpose of investing in cryptocurrency.
Senator Gutierrez, for what purpose?
To speak against whenever it's time.
You're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, members, thank you so much. I'm sorry, Mr. President, members, thank you so much. Harken back to old times in the House. I apologize. Senator Schwertner and I both came from the House of Representatives. We call that the People's House. I've already said enough on this bill, and I don't need to say much more. But there are so many needs across this state. There's people, I mentioned Quitman and Mineola earlier. There's people in Mejia. There's people in Carthage. There's people in Dumas. There's people in El Paso and all about this state that don't have food to put on their table. They don't have health care to speak of. They don't have adequate housing. Auto insurance in this state is through the roof. In the last 5 years, our auto insurance has gone up 50%. Corporate profits and corporate greed have gone up like nobody's business. And yet here today, we're going to pass a bill, I suppose, that'll create some kind of reserve of some currency that the vast majority of Texans don't have. Not 99% of them, not 99.99% of Texans do not have this currency. We know that it is a highly volatile currency and admittedly an unregulated currency. And yet here we stand passing a bill to allow us to go and create this reserve as some kind of a backstop against bad economies, when everything that we have seen from Bitcoin and any other alternative coin shows us that it is not counter-cyclical. Unlike gold in a bad economy, gold is up here, the economy's down here. That doesn't happen with Bitcoin. When the economy's down, Bitcoin is down. And the fluctuations on this stuff is insanity. And everything that we've seen from this president and beyond has been nothing more than market manipulation for the few. And members, if you don't know what that means, market manipulation, tomorrow they'll say, Bitcoin passed the Texas Senate, and tomorrow Bitcoin will be up 15%. And then it'll be down the next day, 30%. Who knows? God knows. But we have so many real concerns in this state and so many of our citizens that are asking for real help. And the last thing that we need to do is go benefit some techno bro. I think that's what they call them. Because there's nothing about this that makes it some alternative coin, as they call it. It should be called klepto, not crypto. But that's where we are here today, creating a piece of legislation that doesn't help any one of our constituents in a real way. And so respectfully, Senator, and respectfully, members and Mr. President, I'm voting no here today.
Senator Schwertner, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Senators, for the discussions. Move final passage of Committee Substitute Senate Bill 21 to bring Texas into the digital currency era.
Senator Schwertner moves final passage of Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 21. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores.
It'll be 25 ayes and 5 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations, Senator.